I now hand the conference over to Mr. Nikhil Mathur from Ambit Capital. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Ambit Capital, I thank the Laurus management for giving us the opportunity to host their 1Q FY22 earnings call. Today on the call, we have Dr. Satyanarayan Chava, Founder and CEO, Mr. V.V. Ravi Kumar, ED and CFO, and Mr. Vivek Kumar, Senior GM, Investor Relations. I now hand over the call to Dr. Satya for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on our Quarter 1 FY22 results conference call. We are pleased to have this opportunity to update on our progress and answer your queries. I hope everyone and their family members, colleagues, and friends are safe during this second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. The second wave of COVID pandemic was more severe, impactful when compared to the first wave in terms of infections and fatality across regions. The regional lockdowns during the Q1 had some temporary impact, but with the agility and resilience that our teams have shown in the face of this challenge, helped us to maintain normal operations across all locations. We are very thankful to our colleagues for rising to this challenge and ensuring business continuity. At Laurus, we are committed to protecting the health and well-being of our employees and their families. We continue to implement rigorous safety and hygiene practices across all locations without any complacency. We continue to conduct regular testing for all the employees and provide flexibility to work from home for employees wherever possible. Coming to the results of Q1 FY22, these results reflect a very healthy start to the financial year. We increased our focus on having a better product mix and focusing on margin sustainability. We achieved these results despite pandemic-induced operation challenges, and we stand reaffirmed on our aspirational revenue target of $1 billion by FY23. And this was supported by healthy demand outlook and capacity expansion plans lined up across all our business segments. We achieved 1,279 crore revenue in Q1 FY22. With a 31% growth year-on-year. Our antiviral segment shown a growth of 23% and oncology 16%, whereas non-ARV, non-oncology product sales degrew by over 40%, whereas overall generic APIs have shown more than 27%, around 5% growth. The synthesis division has shown robust growth with over 95% growth from 100 crores to 195 crores. This is the first time we are also reporting numbers for our bio division with 14 crores coming from Quarter 1 FY20. To begin, I would like to share key updates on our formulation business. The formulation division reported highest ever revenue of 521 crores. Strong growth of 48% year-on-year. The contribution from formulation segment has improved during the quarter to 41% to our revenues compared to 35% for the financial year FY21. We have seen good growth in regions supported by ramp up in global funds and PEPFAR supplies in the LMIC markets. And we are also in the process of obtaining in-country approvals for our tenofovir alafenamide-based fixed dose combination, and we are on track to launch this product in the current quarter. Apart from LMIC ARV business, we have also seen growth in developed markets in North America and EU. To leverage our front end in the US, we commenced marketing of in-license products. We have done 6 products in license and out of those 3 were launched, and we are in the process of launching remaining 3 during the current financial year. We filed 2 ANDAs during the Q1 FY22. With those, we have a total of 28 ANDAs with US FDA, 9 final approvals and 9 tentative approvals. In Canada, we have 10 product approvals, and we have launched 5 of those already, and we intend to launch 2 more in the Q2 and Q3. In EU, we have validated 2 additional products as part of our contract manufacturing partnership, and we expect a significant upside in FY23 from these products. Out of 5 approved products, we have launched 2 products, and we are in the process of launching 1 more product across many countries in Europe. With the robust outlook and order book, we continue to invest in our FDF infrastructure. We have commercialized the debottlenecking project during the Q1. This is expected to add 1 billion units capacity to the current. With that, we have 6 billion units capacity operational right now. Further, our brownfield expansion at the same site, which is expected to add another 4 billion units capacity. With that, we will have, by end of this financial year, 10 billion units solid oral capacity. On the R&D front, we continue to allocate critical resources to our research initiatives and investing in portfolio based on complexity and scale. Our overall R&D spends to the sales for the quarter was at 4%. We have a total of 66 products in R&D pipeline, either under development or under priority review, with a overall addressable market size of over 37 billion. As we also mentioned in our investor presentation, the current basket, what we are looking at, only 20% is ARV and 80% is non-ARV. This is in line with our expectation to diversify our revenue base by FY25. So we are investing into non-ARV product development, both in APIs as well as in the formulation. Of the 28 ANDAs filed in US, we believe that 2 Para IVs and 7 first to file opportunities having a big addressable market size. As you have seen, our approach always remains product specific, not market specific. That is clearly visible in our dossier filing. We have 11 dossiers in Europe, 15 in Canada, 8 with WHO, 2 in South Africa, and 4 in India, and 15 products filed in various rest of the world markets. When it comes to the generic API, our ARV API recorded a healthy growth when compared to the quarter-on-quarter. This was led by higher volumes of first-line APIs. On sequential basis, sales were moderately impacted, partly due to demand normalization, which is in line with our expectations. Second-line ARV APIs continue to see healthy sales during the Q1. We continue to maintain leadership in our key products, while we expect to increase our supplies to developed markets in Europe and US. The revenues from Onco APIs were 59 crores for the Q1. This segment recorded a growth of over 16% quarter-on-quarter. Laurus Labs, as you're aware, we are one of the largest high-potent API capacities in the world, and we are adding more capacity to augment our offerings and also meet the customer demand. We have high-potent capabilities now in Unit 1, Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5, and we are adding more capacities in Unit 4. When it comes to non-oncology, non-ARV APIs, we have seen a decline of sales. This will be back on track from Q2. During the first quarter, we have filed 5 DMFs in non-ARV category, taking the total number of DMFs filed to 66. We also initiated the validations for a few other APIs and expect to see significant growth from Q4 FY22 onwards. We have very good order book visibility in non-onco, non-ARV APIs, and we are investing into capacity enhancement to meet our demand in these APIs. When it comes to synthesis business, this division delivered robust growth for the quarter and grew over 95% to 195 crores. This strong growth was led by sustained new client addition and increased business from existing customers and commercial supplies of existing products. We are pursuing several interesting active projects in the late stage clinical programs. We are also doing capacity expansion to support this division's growth plans. We commercialized the LSPL Laurus Synthesis Private Limited Unit 1 during the quarter 1 FY22. Also, our proposed greenfield investment to set up a dedicated R&D center for synthesis division at Genome Valley, Hyderabad, and 2 manufacturing units in Vizag under LSPL is progressing as per our plan. All these units are expected to be operational by FY23. The site will have the capabilities to handle steroids, hormones, high-potent molecules, apart from other large volume products. Laurus Bio recorded a sales of 14 crores for the quarter. As you're aware that Lichcore was renamed as Laurus Bio, and transaction was closed during the month of February 2021. And sequential numbers reported for this quarter are not comparable. On normalized basis, quarter-on-quarter run rate was very stable. During the quarter, we commissioned 2 of the 4 fermentation vessels, and all the 4 fermenters will be operational from Q2 onwards. So we expect full benefit of ramp up of the new capacity from Q3 onwards. We're also in the process of acquiring additional land to further expand our manufacturing capabilities in the fermentation. With that, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Ravi Kumar to share financial highlights.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Satya, and very warm welcome to everyone on our quarter 1 earning call. Total income from operations for the quarter is at 1279 crores against 974 crores, with a growth of 31% year on year. With a better product mix, gross margin, we could able to improve almost by 2%. Our EBITDA for the quarter came at around 400 crores, and the EBITDA margin is 30% on a full year basis. And diluted EPS is at 4.5 rupees on a not annualized basis, which grew over 41% growth over the corresponding quarter. Our ROCE improved to 32.6% on annualized basis on the back of sustained operating leverage across units. So as you're aware that we have embarked on our capex plan of 1500 to 1700 crore for the 2 years, FY22 and FY23. All the projects are on track, except maybe some of the projects may be in 4 to 8 weeks delay. And we have invested around 213 crores in the quarter 1 for the capex. With this, I would request moderator to open the lines for the QA.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask the question. The first question is from the line of Krish Mehta from Enam Holdings. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So I had two questions. The first is on Richcore. So we have, incremental capacity addition of 1 million tons as we spoke about. So could you tell us what the revenue contribution would be from this incremental capacity?
In the quarter one, we commissioned two fermenters, 45,000 each. And in the quarter two, we will complete the rest of the two fermenters of 45,000 liters again. So with those four fermenters coming online by end of September, the R2, where the four new fermenters are located, will be able to deliver about 20 crores revenue per quarter.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had was on the breakup of non-ARV revenue as a whole for Q1.
Non-ARVs we have done. ARVs as a we'll give an answer in a minute. About 33% of revenue in quarter one came from ARV APIs.
Sorry, I was asking for ARV as a whole, including FDF, APIs, everything.
Oh, but 2/3 of revenue came from ARVs, both APIs and formulations.
Okay, and if I could ask a last question, I just wanted to know on the CDMO business, as we've seen tremendous growth this quarter, are there any one-off impacts, in terms of orders that you've got in this quarter, or is this a sustainable run rate going forward?
We don't have any one-offs in the Q1 for our CDMO division. We expect that this division will positively surprise us as well as all of you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll get back in queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhaval Shah from Girik Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. So a couple of questions from my side. So first, the doubling of FDF revenue post our expansion. So the sales would double from the FY21 base?
The sales for the unit of tablets varies. So we can't do arithmetic way of we are increasing capacity so the revenue will increase. All depends on what products we make. So currently we have 6 billion tablet capacity which is operational, and additional 4 billion will be operational in a phased manner from November to March current financial year. And the significant revenue upside from the expanded capacity will come in FY23. And the expanded capacity will be primarily used for non-ARV.
Non-ARV, correct. Okay, sir. So our finance cost is higher quarter on quarter. So what is the increase in the debt and what is our current debt, gross debt as on today? Yeah, and also with this, so last con call we had given a range for the capex for 20 to 23 because we were finalizing certain projects. So have we finalized the exact capex number?
Capex, as we mentioned just now, we believe we will invest anywhere between 1,500 to 700 crore during FY22 and 23. In the Q1 FY22, we already have done 213 crore capex.
Okay.
But that's an capex is a range only at this juncture because it varies little. And finance cost is concerned, actually there is an exchange rate adjustment that is one contributor for the additional finance cost. And second is we are also borrowed an additional loans in the first quarter.
Okay, what is the gross debt?
Sorry?
What is the gross debt as on today?
It's a couple of 100 crores higher debt in the first quarter.
Okay. And on page 25 in the presentation, we mentioned about renewed market share gains in the ARV portfolio in LMIC. So can you elaborate on this line? What does it mean? So we've gained market share, or what is it?
So, gain market share in the first line. We have significant presence in the DLT-based first line, and we are expanding our registration footprint in various countries for TLE 400 and other triple combination products. So thereby we will strengthen our position in the first line. As you're aware, we don't have any product in the second line right now. So we will start getting registrations for second line products also. With those, we will increase our share of market in the both first line and second line.
Okay, fine, sir. That's for right now. I will come back in the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amish Kanani from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah. Sir, if you can elaborate on the mention that we have made about CDMO business, where we said multiple partnership proposal is in collaborative phase. If you can elaborate on that, what are the plans or what are the discussions, and is it the part of the capex that we are planning and stuff like that?
We are investing into 2 new locations as part of our growth plan and business negotiations what we are having with our current partners. The new greenfield units which will come up in Vizag will be to service our offerings, service our what partner is needing. That is the reason we are investing heavily into CDMO. We can't give you more details of what products and what customers right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And sir, also if you can give us some color and sense on the first to file and those 7 products that we have done. Within that, I think 2 were more exclusive opportunities. If you can give us some flavor there in terms of market size or the timing of those potential launches, if any, and what is the status of FDA approval for those set of products? Is it getting delayed because of the FDA not being able to approach and come for the cycle? Thanks.
Out of 7 first to file and P4 opportunities, we got tentative approvals for 3 of those already, and we expect to get tentative approval for 2 more ANDAs during the current financial year.
Okay.
And for the tentative approvals, what we got 3, we are well positioned in 2 of those because there the number of FTF companies are limited. So those products' current brand value is about $5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And sir, any tentative timeline for, if not quarter, say first half, second half of which fiscal year is
No. These launches will happen after 2025.
These are all 2025.
Yeah, these launches will after 2025.
Okay, sir. And since in that context, the 11 billion, of which 85% ARV opportunities of the 33 approved, is this the market addressable opportunity for us for say next 2 to 3 years? Is that the way we can think?
Can you repeat your question? We didn't get exactly what you're looking for.
So we said approved, we have about 33 products approved with an 11 billion market opportunity, right? In US and EU, addressable market opportunity that we have shown. My question is this the short-term, short to medium-term, next 2 to 3 year addressable market opportunity for us in EU and US?
These products which are in development, where we mentioned 37 billion opportunities, these will be long term. I don't see these will have benefit in FY 22 or 23. So for a product which you have to get revenue in FY 23, you might have filed already and you might have got approval or about to get approval.
Yes, so, that's the clarification I was asking, sir. So that is 37 billion is for the long term, which is 66 projects under development and pending. Yeah. I was asking, there was a 11 billion opportunity that we are showing in a presentation where 33 products are being approved. So at least those are the ones where we can get the benefits of market share and approval and this thing in medium term, which is 2 to 3 years. Is that the way to look at it?
One product where we expect to launch in FY 23 out of the opportunity what we mentioned. Only one product will be launched in 23.
Sure. Okay. Thanks a lot, sir, and all the best. I'll come back in the case.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nimish Mehta from Research Delta Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and congrats on great set of numbers. Sir, picking up on the previous participant, is it fair to, we've seen the generic FDF growth sequentially much better than, generic FDF on ARV growing much better than API ARV, on a sequential basis. And sequential basis, API ARV is down. You mentioned that, dolutegravir pickup probably is one of the reasons of generic FDF. So why is it not also translating into API growth? So what is the disconnect? I'm trying to understand that.
It's a very interesting question. So our API sale depends on how much of our partners are getting market share and their inventory level, their order book. We can't sell more than what our customer needs. Whereas in the case of formulations, we know what orders we won and when to supply to which region we need to supply. But we do expect this API supplies to our other third-party ARV customers will resume to normal level soon. Yeah.
So, I'm assuming that, the products are overlapping. When it comes to API ARV and the generic FDF ARV. In that case, because we have cost leadership in most of the ARV products, is it not fair to assume that we will always have higher growth in ARV formulation than ARV API? Because we will get bulk of the market share versus other competitors. That's what I'm essentially trying to understand.
In most of the ARV formulation business, the tender split is very even. So tenders are not awarded to the lowest bidder 100%. Winner doesn't take all. So there will be a distribution between L1, L2, L3, L4, and there are certain capacities allocated for the new entrants. So even somebody wants to crash price, doesn't mean you will get 100% of the tender. At the best, you will get 40%. So it is not easy to assume we'll be able to garner all the market. There will be opportunity for us to play a good, get a good share while we continue to supply APIs to our partners.
Understood. So the next question actually probably partially you have answered, but let me just reiterate in case there is anything. The other thing I wanted to know is that, while we are expanding into other products, say second line treatment, in terms of capacity, so, because there is enough competition already there in those products, how do we see ourselves gaining more market share? Because, what is that uniqueness? Again, it's the cost leadership, or what is it, which will help us gain market share?
Our focus in other therapy areas, especially, is on anti-diabetic segment and cardiovascular. In the anti-diabetic segment, the new class of drugs, especially the DPP-4 inhibitors, vildagliptin, sitagliptin, and other gliptins will go off patent from next year onwards. So we have a full basket of products in the diabetic segment. So there we have created capacity for both APIs and formulations. And when it comes to the cardiovascular segment, these nitrosamine impurities disrupted the market share in the cardiovascular for the sartans. So we invested during this crisis to enhance capacity and the best quality product. And we do see the opportunities for a fully integrated player in both cardiovascular as well as the diabetic segment, because these are large volume products, and the capacity demands are also high. Quality demands are also equally high. There we believe we can play a role. We have capacity, we have right quality material to get to the market.
Understood. Actually, I was asking more about the ARV products where we are expanding into second line treatment, especially for NS.
Oh, okay. So I'll answer that question as well. The second line, the product basket is limited, and the competition is also limited. Not all the ARV players are having integrated second line therapy offering. So we are creating or we're developing ANDAs to capture market not only in the LMIC region but also in Europe and US.
And that is on the base of, again, we being the least cost because we are integrated. Is that the right way to understand?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. A request to all the participants, please restrict to 2 questions per participant. If time permits, please come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. The next question is from the line of Nitin Agarwal from DAM Capital Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking the question. Sir, you mentioned that FY25...
Nitin, sorry to interrupt you. May I request you to speak a little louder?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Sir, you mentioned in FY25 you're looking to diversify it away from the ARV business. Right now, as you mentioned, we are about 65% ARV business in the overall revenue mix. How do you see this proportion changing by FY25?
We can only guide you, but we can't give you the exact number. We do believe by FY25, the ARVs, both APIs and formulation business, should come down from 2/3 to 1/3.
Okay. And sir, okay, that's fair enough. And sir, we are right now at doing about $500 million of revenues on the ARV business on an annualized basis, give or take. In your assessment, how big can this business really get over a period of time? Given the size of the market and the way that competition is, essentially, there are some challenges in terms of some maybe competitors are not very aggressive in this business. How big can this piece get for us from $500 million where it is today?
Maybe one could grow single digit, I would say. It's not easy to grow teens or higher growth because market, the number of patients coming on treatment is not increasing like in the previous years. So there will be a shift from the weaker players to stronger players. But otherwise, if you look at the entire ARV formulation business is between 1.5 to 1.8 billion, and 500 million is almost 33% of revenues coming to us. We do believe we have the ability to gain market share, but it will not be significant. That is the reason we are investing our resources both in R&D as well as in CapEx to non-ARV, non-oncology.
Got it, sir. And lastly, on that point, so on the non-ARV business, since you've talked about obviously a very large, significant growth in this business, because this business, as you say, has almost become 2/3 from 1/3 where it is today over the next, say, 4 years. Apart from oncology, apart from diabetes and CVS, which you mentioned, where the integrated play for us will come in handy, what are the other? These will be the primary drivers, or are there any other drivers of business which will sort of reduce this, which will drive this non-ARV piece of business for us?
We have a reasonably developed portfolio. Apart from anti-diabetic and cardiovascular segment, we have few other APIs being developed and ANDAs being developed. Those are complex and scale projects. Maybe we will let you know at an appropriate time. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you and best of luck.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tushar Manudhane from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So just on this bio business, when at the time of acquisition, first half FY20 had sales of about 30 crores, which was without commercialization of 2 fermenters. And now for the first quarter with commercialization, we are at 14 crores. So just to understand this disconnect.
No, I think the 2 fermenters which came into operational only in the June. So there is not significant revenue generated in the first quarter from the new fermenters. You will see the full-fledged revenue out of second unit from probably from third quarter.
Understood. Secondly, on the formulation side, if you could share how much this in-licensed product would have contributed for the quarter? And would it be at a similar profitability as we make in the products which we manufacture?
Revenue from in-licensed products in US is not that significant in Q1.
Yeah, that's it from me. Thanks. And just lastly, this debottlenecking also is a benefit is there in 1Q, or even that would come from 2Q onwards from the formulation side?
Formulation side, the debottlenecking was done by end of June and put into operation only in July. Yeah.
So that revenue will also get reflected in 2Q onwards?
In the current quarter, in Q2. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Harith Ahmed from Spark Capital Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hi. Good morning. Thanks for taking my question. My first question is on the CDMO business. How much of this business will be coming from supplies to Aspen, and what exactly is the nature of these supplies? And similarly, what is the contribution from what we previously used to call ingredients supplies in the overall CDMO pie?
The custom ingredients and supplies to Aspen steroidal intermediates, about 40% of our CDMO revenues in Q1.
Okay. And you know the nutraceuticals part of CDMO, how much will that be?
Put together, the both Aspen CDMO and then custom ingredients put together is 40%.
Okay. And on the formulation side, what is our TLD market share in LMIC currently, and for the quarter, what will be the breakup of FD sales between LMIC, ARV, and US Europe? Is it the split the same as what we've seen in recent quarters, around 75-25?
Yes, around that 70-30 ratios. Yeah.
And then our market share for TLD and LMIC?
TLD LMIC is in higher teens now.
Okay. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naresh Suthar from SBI Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. So, my question you have answered partly already. So, I just wanted to get clear. From here on, majority of your non-ERV capex and benefit of that is coming more towards end of this year and more in FY23. So, next 9 months, can I say that our EBITDA revenue will be broadly in a range till the non-ERV picks up significantly from next year? Is it right understanding?
We have added API capacity became operational in Q4, and we are expecting one more API block will be operational by end of December. So we are putting capacity into commercialization on a regular basis. So when we are saying our formulation capacity will be ready by March, that means the revenues from that expanded capacity will come in FY23, you're right. But as we mentioned, our debottlenecking activity also gave a 20% more capacity, which became operational by end of Q1.
Right, but for that you said the LMIC, I mean the ARV formulation market is now will be growing at some single digit. So I don't know. So there will not be significant growth, but there will be some growth. That's what I should think.
There will be growth. So we can ramp up production depending on the opportunity. So our 6 billion current capacity is not utilized 100% even in this month. So there is a scope for us to take more orders and service.
Okay. And sir, one more question on CDMO side. Can you help us for the amount which we are investing in terms of capex, in particularly for that segment?
In the formulation, we are investing around 400 crores capex for this new capacity expansion.
In CDMO formulation.
So in CDMO, we will be investing in FY22 and 23 put together maybe around 500 crores.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Forum Parekh from Choice Investments. Please go ahead. Forum Parekh, may I request to unmute your line from your side and go ahead with the question. Due to no response.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Now you are.
Yeah. So my question is on Laurus Bio. I understand that the contribution to the EBITDA would be niche at this in this quarter, but going forward, just wanted to understand how much would Laurus Bio contribute to the EBITDA? And second question is on the CDMO side. I see that, we have commercialized 4 projects as on Q1. So going forward, how many projects do we intend to commercialize out of these 50 clients?
We will continue to supply these 4 commercialized products in FY23 and thereafter as well. New commercial launches will happen in FY23. We don't expect anything in FY22. Yeah.
Okay. And Laurus Bio contribution to the EBITDA?
We are not giving division-wise EBITDA contributions, but when we are in a position to give, we'll provide. Yeah.
Okay. And sir, just last question, if I may. FDF capacity utilization, if you can just, give us an idea.
We're at about 80% capacity utilization in FDF right now.
Okay. And we have any scope for improvement? I mean, expansion in that?
We can take more orders and service with the current capacity itself.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tushar Manudhane from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the follow. Sir, just on the CDMO piece, on the investment of 500 crores, what kind of asset turn can be expected?
These are greenfield projects. These are not brownfield. The groundbreaking will happen next quarter. These investments will give revenues probably FY23, last quarter of FY23 onwards, not before.
Yeah, and what is the kind of an asset turn which we can expect from these investments?
Difficult to predict right now, but this will be in line with industry or better than industry. Yeah, as you see, our current asset turn ratio is closer to 1.4. So we will be in that range. Yeah.
So CDMO also it would be like in the range of 1.4.
Yeah.
Other guys are at about 2.5. So.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Omkar from Sri Consultancy. Please go ahead.
Yeah, one of my question has been answered. The second question is regarding, do you have any plans for debt reduction given the cash you are generating from the profits?
No immediate plans. So we see the business opportunities in front of us, and we're investing. And our cost of debt is not that huge where we will stop capex and retire debt.
What's your debt to equity currently?
Debt to EBITDA is less than 1.
Debt to EBITDA is less than?
Debt equity is 0.58.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Samir Palod from AUM Fund Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hello. So one clarification, you had mentioned that you are looking to split the contribution of ARV. Just want to recheck, so by which year do you expect to do that?
FY 2025, you're saying.
2025. So which means that, and so within that, how do you see the ARV business growing for the next 4 years?
It will grow single digit. We don't expect it will grow significantly. See, as you have seen, ARV contribution, both APIs and formulations, was very significant in FY20, FY21, and FY22. So this growth will moderate FY23 onwards. And the new investments what we are making in non-ARV will start giving revenues from FY23 itself.
Understood. So the other question was, in the CDMO business, do you expect to have any ARV contribution?
In CDMO, no.
And biologics, sir?
No. See, contract manufacturing, I wanted to clarify. We do contract manufacturing in generic APIs. We do contract manufacturing in generic formulations. We do contract manufacturing in NCEs. See, when we are talking about CDMO business, it is primarily in the NCEs. So our generic APIs, generic formulation contract manufacturing is not added here. So that way, our today revenue contribution from contract manufacturing as a whole is 25%, or little more than 25%, when we add APIs, formulations, and NCEs. So when we are talking about this CDMO business, this is primarily meant for NCEs, custom ingredients, one product to one customer in the NCE space.
And they're so both in the non-ARV space, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The NCEs and the formulations are both in the non-ARV space.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naveen from Kotak. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are now. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, my first question is around the capacity that you have for formulations, which is 6 billion tablets. Can you give a split of how much of this is going for your ARV formulations and how much is going for, your generic contract manufacturing of formulations?
About I'll give a broad number. About 20% of capacity is utilized for contract manufacturing.
Okay.
And 40% is utilized for ARVs and 40% for other products.
So out of that 6 billion, 40% is for ARVs, 20% is for generic formulations, contract manufacturing, CMO, and the rest is for the other 40% goes to
the non-ARV formulations.
Okay. Whereas from a value perspective, the ARV formulation
is significant. ARV is significant.
Okay. And for the additional 4 billion.
I wanted to clarify here. When we are talking of the ARV, the ARVs, we do 3 APIs into one pill. So our 40% units may consume more equipment than other 40% where we use one API only. So when we are talking I gave the 20, 40, 40 in number of units, but the number of equipments used to get this are much larger for these ARVs. So in the other APIs and other formulations, we use either one API or 2 APIs put together. Whereas in the ARVs, we have to use 3 APIs. So the number of equipments used is much more than the other tablets or capsules.
Okay, I get your point there, sir. And for the additional 4 billion tablet capacity, could you just give us a ballpark split, because you said by and large this will go for generic CMO, if I understood it correctly. But if you could give some idea, a numerical sort of cue to us as to how much of this 4 billion goes for generic CMO.
In the new expanded capacity, about 1 billion will be used for CMO, and then remaining 3 billion will be used for non-ARVs. So, yeah.
Okay, when you say...
Sorry to interrupt you. I'll request you to come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. Thank you. A request to all the participants, please restrict to 2 questions per participant. If time permits, please come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. The next question is from the line of Devrat Mohta from Capital Group. Please go ahead.
Hi, Doctor. Hope all well. Just 2 questions from me. So firstly, on the CDMO, was there any one-off in the quarter, or this is just kind of, business as usual, clients ramping up, projects commercializing?
As we clarified, there is no one-off in CDMO revenues in Q1. This is business as usual. Yeah.
Got it. And secondly, can you just talk to what happened on the other APIs? Is it just timing mismatch, or is there something else to, because the other API segment kind of declined quite a bit, so just curious to know what happened there.
There is no mismatch. There is only shift in supply schedules.
Okay, got it. And the other last question, if I can squeeze in one more, on the margin. So if I look at the margin sequentially, gross margins have gone up, but the EBITDA margin has gone down. Can you just talk through what's caused the gross margin to go up and what's caused the EBITDA margin to go down sequentially?
Because of our pre-operative expenditure, our increased R&D expenditure, we were down by about 1% on the EBITDA. But at the same time, we were almost 100 crore less revenue from Q4 to Q1.
That's for EBITDA. Yeah. But the gross margin, it is in a mix. So for like more synthesis revenue we have, so that contributed in a better gross margin.
Perfect. So if I understood correctly, the gross margin is because of mix. The EBITDA margin is primarily negative operating leverage and pre-operative expenses. So basically, FY23 onwards, a lot of these pre-operative expenses will go away because, as your plants commission this year, there will be some cost this year, but next year you won't have that same pre-operative expense drag on EBITDA.
That's
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are my questions. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tarang from Old Bridge Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Just wanted to check what would be your conversion costs per million tablets in case of formulations and maybe per kiloliter in case of APIs?
Those details, I'm afraid we can't give you. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Agarwal from DAM Capital. Please go ahead.
So thanks for taking my question again. So on the CDMO business, obviously we've come a long way from where we started largely with Aspen to where the plans that we have for this business. So if you can probably give us a little qualitative sense on, how have you seen the business evolving? What kind of opportunities are you beginning to see now? And what is it? I mean, what is the USP that we bring to the table, which is getting clients attracted to us for this business?
So, if some company looking to outsource their activity, if they write 5 names in India with technical capabilities and scale, I'm sure Laurus Labs will figure out there. So that is one way we are attracting customers. We have 4.6 million liters reactor volume right now, and we're adding almost 1 million liters more in the next 18 months. So we are one of the top 5 companies with reactor volume. And we have demonstrated our expertise in certain type of chemistries, especially the chiral chemistry, large-scale manufacturing, large-scale chromatography capabilities, high-potent capabilities. So there we have earned a lot of reputation with our customers. So that is helping us to bring more new projects into CDMO.
Right. And so most of these projects that we're talking about, like also the 2 greenfield projects that we talked about, these are what? These are products which are already commercialized, or they are in late phase of development and will get commercialized. What is the typical nature of the business that we're looking to get incrementally?
We have commercialized 4 products, 3 APIs and 1 advanced intermediate. Those supplies are going on as planned. And we have several projects in phase 2 and actually we have 2 projects in phase 2 which are oncology. And we have 1 in phase 3 right now. So we have a mix of high-potent molecules in various clinical phases, and we have a few in where we have to use our large-scale manufacturing expertise.
And this is, you're talking about the greenfield projects, sir?
These are in the clinical phase.
And then you mentioned about you putting up 2 new greenfield projects where you in consultation with the clients. What would be the typical nature of these kind of? These would be again large scale volume manufacturing contracts that you are getting for which you need to.
We'll give more details at an appropriate time on those. So it is premature for us to give more details. We will share those details when appropriate.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Krish Mehta from Enam Holdings. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to ask on the net debt as of 30th June 21.
Net debt is actually about 170 crores increase.
170 crore increase.
Yeah.
And the capex for this quarter, as you said, was 213 crores. So what's the guidance for the remaining 9 months going forward for FY22 as well as FY23, if you could share that for capex?
For a capex, actually, for 2 years, we gave a guidance of 1,500 to 1,700 crore.
Right. But just to get it, can we use this 213 as a run rate for the rest of the year?
Yeah, in an average, maybe around that. Actually, we can't say exactly 200, but when I say 1,500 to 1,700 crore, it is similar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Kumar from Quest for Value. Please go ahead.
My question is for Dr. Chava. I guess the approvals for global tenders in FDA formulation is valid for 3 years. And I think the approval you got in 2018 for these global tenders would be expiring this year. Can you please let us know if this approval is getting renewed now?
So the Global Fund tender was for 3 years, you are right. And due to this pandemic, they extended the tender period from 3 to 4 years.
Okay, so it's still for next year, 2022. Then.
Yeah. So these tenders are valid until end of next year.
Okay. And my second question is regarding this ARV API revenue. May I know whether you anticipate any growth in FY22 compared to FY21? I'm asking because in last con call you were like guided for single-digit growth for FY22 for ARV API. Is this guidance still valid?
We do expect so. Yeah.
Okay. And my last question, if I may, in the recent interview with one of the international media channel, when you were asked on question on what excites you in future in Laurus, you said that you expect there would be an oral drug for COVID, and if it comes, it will be a big opportunity for Laurus. May I know if there is any COVID, oral drugs in pipeline like Molnupiravir for Laurus?
As you're aware, we in-licensed 2 deoxyglucose from DRDO, for which we are gearing up for launch in the next few weeks. We are in the regulatory approval process. And other than that, we are working on other drugs, but we don't know when the approvals come. It's too early to predict.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. That's it from my side.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Jeevan Patwa from Candy Flow. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Just one question. So you, in your presentation, you basically said we are basically going for 1 million fermentation capacity in phase 1. So are you thinking of any phase 2 as well?
So currently, the R2 will give 180,000 liter new fermentation capacity, and we are looking for a land. We can't go to a new site for every million liter. So the new land, what we are looking at is fairly big, about 25-30 acre land bank. Okay. And there we can go to 3 to 4 million liters fermentation capacity, but we'll start with 1 million liters.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, and all the best, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I now hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this conference call, and also for your very insightful questions. And please do keep safe. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Ambit Capital Private Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.